Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here it is, okay? Here's the walk-in freezer diagram, okay? Now, the way this works here is you always identify the power where it's coming in initially, okay? And this is gonna be line 1 right here and line 2 right here, okay? And basically the whole brain of this whole walk-in freezer here is basically separated into two main sections here, okay? Here and here, okay? And over here we have the cooling, which represents number 4 here. So everything that comes out of number 4, okay, which is this whole section right here, okay, is cooling. Everything that comes out of number 3 here, which is all these heating elements, and this leg going back to line 2, represents the heating, okay? Now this box right here is the time clock, okay? It's called the Defrost time clock. And what this box, the best way to understand this box is that it only has two major missions, okay? Okay, when the clock has this set for cooling, this contact will be closed, okay, delivering power to all the cooling side and getting back to line 2 over here, okay? When the clock calls for heating, this switch will open and this switch will close, bringing in line 1 power through this switch and then feeding all your heating elements over here, with the second leg going back to line 2 here. This is a heater limit switch, so if these heats ever gets too hot before they start melting metal and melting plastic parts, this will open up and disconnect the heaters. If this clock or if this switch here were to ever get stuck. Now, if you notice, line 1 comes in through here, goes up and feeds this load. This is the clock, right? You notice one leg of the clock is hooked up to line 1 here, and the second leg of the clock goes straight to line 2 over here, which tells you, and there's no switch in between that, you see that? Which tells you that this clock is always energized 24 hours a day, okay? Now, I'm focusing mostly on this clock right here, okay, as of right now. So if you notice, line 1 goes through the clock here, feeds the load, and line 2, which is goes through the end terminal and feeds line back to line 2 here, okay? Line 1 also jumps out here to terminal 2, and terminal 2 feeds, which is still line 1. Even though it's terminal 2, it's still line 1, okay? So line 1 feeds the normally closed contact on the freezer section, which represents the compressor, the condenser fan motor, and the evaporator fan, okay? And then line 1 also feeds normally open contacts to the heating elements down here, Okay. Now the thing to know about this clock is the brain. Okay. And if the cooling is not on, the heating is on. If the heating is not on, the cooling is on. So one thing to note is that one or the other always has to be on or activated. Never both at the same time. In other words, they should both never be on at the same time, and they should both never be off at the same time. It's one or the other at all times. Okay? So if the cooling is not cooling, then the heating should be on. If the heating is not heating, or the defrost heating is not on, then the cooling should be on. Now, don't confuse the cooling the cooling could be on, but it could be technically off if the thermostat inside the box reaches that point. Okay, so don't confuse that with that. In other words, when this cooling switch is closed, okay, it's set up for the whole cooling section to work, but it could be off on thermostat. So this will cycle on and off on thermostat, but this switch will always be closed. And if it's not closed, then the heating is closed. And if the heating is not closed, then the cooling is closed. It's one or the other all the time. But at the same time, it has to be one or the other all the time. They can't both be off or open, and they can't both be closed at the same time. Okay? So just be clear on that when it comes to this defrost time clock right here. Okay?